Yeah, this is very weird for me, standing in my own office and talking to folks in the UK. But we managed that, and I'm going to talk about the first contact. So if you think, or if you came here with an idea of we were talking about Star Trek, I'm sad to say no, we won't. We're more talking about first contacts like that. I'm pretty sorry. A lot of my examples will be in German. That is mostly due to the fact that my browser automatically uses German as default language. And so even though there might be localized versions, that is just usually not the case for screenshots or something like that. No, so we are going to talk about things like that, forms, login forms. But why the first contact? Well, mostly the first contact is someone comes to your site and they are pretty impressed by what you did. You set up an awesome blog within 2 minutes, really cool. And now they want to see the details and they want to sign up for your newsletter, for your Laracast, for whatever service you are providing. And that is where the real McCoy comes in. Because your registration or your order form is actually the first real impression that the people get from your company. Everything before that is just advertisement. And even though we might hit a lot of GDPR stuff on the way, this is not the main topic, but it has a lot to do with it, because one of the key aspects of GDPR is privacy by design. And we are going to talk a lot about, or I'm going to talk a lot about design. Who am I? I'm this guy from Germany. I'm a software developer at a company called BitExpert. I'm co-organizer of another user group. So whenever you come around Frankfurt, feel free to visit our user group. At the moment, we are also doing the most of the meetings, no, all of the meetings virtual. So next Thursday, for example, there would be one. So feel free to drop by. You're very welcome. I've created also a few websites. One of them is php.ug, the list of all the PHP, well, supposed all the PHP user groups in the world. Another one is Calling All Papers, which is a website for, well, showing calls for papers for open conferences. And that is part of the Joined In organization. And so I'm also doing a lot of stuff for Joined In. So if you have any questions about Joined In or any remarks, feel free to drop me a line afterwards. I would be really happy about that. I do maintain open source libraries, etc., etc. But that aside, I have to tell you, or I have to give you a disclaimer, because this is going to be a rant. I'm not a UI or UX person. I'm absolutely a backend developer. Give me an API and I'm pretty happy. Give me some JavaScript and I'm lost. I'm also not a lawyer. So take whatever I say here with a grain of salt. And if there are some legal statements involved, please go and ask a lawyer whether that what I said here is actually feasible or not. So I'm just an ordinary user. But besides from being an ordinary user, I'm also alumni of High School of Street Knowledge and University of Common Sense. I hope every one of you is that as well. And as was already said, please give me feedback for the talk afterwards. I'd really like to know what I can improve and or what was good, so that is okay. And before we dive into the whole thing, well, I will give you a few examples, but before that, I would just like to clarify a few things, or one thing. The whole talk is, well, we can extend that. Usually it was designed for 45 to 50 minutes. But at user groups, we managed to make that 1.5 or even 2 hours because we were asked or allowing questions in between. So if you have no problem with a kind of an open-end thing, I would say we allow questions in between. If that is something where we say, yeah, probably not, then please drop your questions into the chat and we'll handle them later on afterwards. And those that are not interested in the question can do whatever they want. Drink a beer, go home, not really, because they are already there. You know what I mean? So how shall we do that? Are there any preferences from anyone?
If people just drop the questions in the Q&A, can you see the Q&As in real time? Or the chat?
Or raise a hand and we'll allow the audio questions through. I'll monitor it throughout.
So you are monitoring that and then interrupt me just?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Right, then let's dive into that. And I'll give you a few examples of awesome, good, less good, and extremely interesting web forms. So the first one, probably most of you have already seen. This is a kind of nice registration form. We'll see why it is a pretty nice registration form in a few minutes. But here we are just asked for, give us or consider a username, give us your email address, and, well, of course, because you want to log in, give us a password. Cool, interesting. What about this one? It looks the same, more or less. Well, okay, the color is different, but the fields are more or less the same. Give me your name, give me your phone number or email address. Yeah, okay. And give me a password. Sure, makes sense. Easy registration forms, nothing to talk about in the end, more or less. What about this one? Yes, the screenshots are a bit older now, so perhaps that might have changed by now, but this was what I've seen, I think a year ago or something like that. Okay, they also want a full name and a username. What? Okay. An email? Yeah, sure, because I want to get emails. And an email confirmation? Do they think I can't type or what? Yeah, okay, password, I can understand that. And what is that? I'm not a robot? Yeah, sure, I'm not a robot. And this captcha looks pretty weird there. Completely from a UI perspective, interrupts the whole layout. That's kind of, that's not really a nice form, but it's still okay-ish. Because then there is always stuff like this. And yeah, this is the registration form of a German company, and they want everything. They want to know whether I'm male or female, my first name, my my last name, my birthday, etc., etc. Yeah. There is so much in this form where I think, like, what the hell is going wrong here? Or why didn't people or web developers like us not think of what they were doing? Let's just go through a few of those things and see why I think they are improvable. The first and most interesting one is names. Names. When people say, yeah, we need a name from a person, most of the developers that I know come up with something like that. Yeah, we use two fields, given name and a family name. Fine. Okay. I, for myself, know pretty well what to fill in where. Yeah, given name is Andreas, family name is Heigl. Easy. Friend of mine is not that easy. Professor Dr. H.C. Meinrad Wolfgang Fürst zu Erber Fürstenau. What? Yeah, that's an actual name. And part of that is his name. So what comes in where? So the given name is that, so to clarify, perhaps Professor Dr. H.C. is the title, academic title. Meinrad and Wolfgang are the two first names, and Fürst zu Erber Fürstenau, well, Fürst zu is the another title, and Erber Fürstenau is actually the last name. So but usually Fürst-zu-Erbach, Fürstenau is considered as the family name. So is the family name Fürst-zu-Erbach, Fürstenau, or is it just Erbach, Fürstenau, or just Erbach, or just Fürstenau? And given name, would that be Meinrad or Wolfgang, or yeah. And then you all know Monty Python, and well, at least I hope so. There is this one, Johann Gamble, Puttide von Ausfern, Splendern, Schlitt, whatever. I will not pronounce that name. How does that family name fit into that family name? And if you think that is kind of weird and that was just made up, yes, that was made up. That's correct. And that's not the weirdest name there is. The longest name ever registered on Earth is the name of this person. Yeah, you're right. That is like, I think 966 characters. So yeah, given name, which one of those 26 is the given name? And the family name, no way that fits in anywhere. And then there is also, 988 characters. Sorry about that. Okay, so given name, family name might not be the right thing. Perhaps, or especially if you think about internationalization. If you have international customers, what about people like Björk Gudmundsdottir? That's the Icelandic singer Björk. Her last name is Gudmundsdottir, which is not a family name, not at all, because the last name means I'm the daughter of Gudmund. So her father, Gudmund, had a completely different name there. So that's not a family name. Or what about this person, Isa bin Osman? This means Isa, the son of Osman. So Osman is not a family name because, well, Osman is the name of his father, and his father then was perhaps Osman bin whatever. So that doesn't work as well. Okay, so then let's use first name and last name. That should be easy, shouldn't it? Yeah. Father of Karim, Muhammad the Beautiful, son of Nidal, son of Abdulaziz, the Palestinian. Okay, so what is the first name? So the first name is Abu, and the last one is Filistini, which means Palestinian. Nah, it doesn't work. Or what about Madurai Maniia? This is a female name where Madurai actually is the name of the village this person comes from. Mani is the given name, and Iya is the name of the caste this person was born into. So kind of an Indian name. So first name would be the name of the village, and the last name would be the caste name. Nah, that doesn't work either. And what about this person? So this is Mao Zedong. Mao would be the first name. Dong would be the family name, and Ze is the generation name. So all the brothers and sisters of Mao Zedong share the Zedong. The only difference is the first part of that. Or was it the other way around? Was that like the family name is Mao and Dong is the first name? I can't remember. What are the takeaways of that mess? Think about the following. If you consider fields for names, always remember there might be no family name actually involved or available. And especially for American companies, there might be no middle initial. And but more interesting is the question, is it actually necessary for us to know how the name is split up? Where do we need that? And if we need that, why do we need that? So sometimes it really pays off by asking, why do we need it that way? And so instead, I would say just use one field, your name. And then the person can type in whatever they want. And yes, you should definitely be prepared for very, very, very long input. Or it might be just one character. We have that sometimes that people try to register in a form because they had a first name or a given name that was only 2 characters long, and a lot of validations require at least 3 characters. So they were never ever able to enter their name correctly, which is kind of weird. And especially if you consider the 1 character or 2 character inputs, also be prepared for non-ASCII entries, like support Unicode. Yes, people can then also enter emojis, but hey, why not? It depends on what you're building here. One of the questions that usually comes up, yeah, but what if I'm building an application like for come on, airplane, air traffic or whatever, where the tickets need to have the name of the passenger in a certain format, and it has to be written like on the passport or whatnot. Yes, use those fields, but make explicitly clear that you want the name explicitly as it is written in the passport, or like this or this, so that people know exactly what they have to fill in here. For legal reasons, that might be required sometimes. And especially if you're using Unicode, also use a transcription field if that is necessary. So for example, for this Mao Zedong, 3 characters could be anything. Use in PHP, the Intel extension, they have a transcription library in there that where you can feed in the international or the Unicode characters, and it returns you an ASCII version of that, whatever it is. So that you could use that to pre-fill the field, and then the person can say, yeah, that's correct, or no, I want to edit that, or whatever. Because, for example, as far as I know, in Korea, it is like that. The people have an official kind of name and a completely different one, informal name for the family, or for example, foreigners. So usually they would then enter their official Korean name in the internationalized field, but might then use that name for foreigners in the transcription field. And please always clearly label your fields. That's what I meant with the needs to be as in your passport. Label it like that. And if you're building like kind of legal forms where you ask for previous names, use exactly that. Use previous name instead of maiden name, because, well, those times are over. And to give you a short idea of that it's not only me ranting like that, I have added some resources here, especially the first one is a really interesting read. Have fun with it, and you might actually recognize some of the names I used here. Yeah, names, but that is not all, was not everything in there. The other thing that usually pisses me off actually in forms, and the longer I live, the more I have to do with forms, the more it pisses me off, is asking for a gender. And just today I read a tweet about that. Don't ask for a gender. And especially don't ask for gender in this form, male, female, because gender is not binary. It definitely isn't, and I'm not questioning that. The main for me always the interesting question is, what do they need that for? If I have to add an agenda, what for? What do the people need that gender for? Is that to address someone like Mr. Heigl? Or, well, then ask for pronouns like he, she, or they, or whatever that is. And please let people fill it in, and not like here you have a predefined set of lists, a predefined list, and select something. But wouldn't it be much easier to just ask someone how they want to be addressed? Like just give them a form field and say, how do you want to be addressed if we send you a newsletter? Yes, of course, people can enter their Superman. You know what? If you're sending out a newsletter to me and I read, hello, Superman, I'm happy and I will read that newsletter most certainly. it will definitely better than if there is something like, hello, Miss Heigl, because someone was so clever to say, yeah, we're not asking for gender, but we are using the gender library in PHP, and try to figure out what the gender is according to the first name, which doesn't work out. Forget it. So just ask for how you want to be addressed. There are also some resources. Check them out if you want to. So we have a name. We have hopefully no gender. What is the next most common thing that we have in forms? Yeah, of course, email. Yeah, you remember this one? To be quite honest, there is no need to enter the email address twice, because most of the people know how to use copy and paste. Most of the people actually know how to enter an email address, and if I can read it, I can usually spot any spelling mistakes. Yes, usually, of course. Yeah, but if there is a spelling mistake, and you know what? If there is a spelling mistake, I either do copy and paste and I have the spelling mistake in both of the fields, or do you require people to enter a physical address twice where you ship something to? Just the other day, my wife actually had that. She entered a typo in the physical shipping address. And well, okay, it wasn't that bad because the parcel just was dropped off 2 houses further away. So that was kind of okay. Yeah, no, it was just the wrong number. But if it's only the wrong number, that's easy. But if it's suddenly a complete different postal code, you will never get whatever you wanted. And you're not asking that twice as well. So why? Because you'll send an opt-in email anyhow. At least I hope you do that if you're asking for email addresses. So people will eagerly wait for that. And at one point they will notice. And then it is cool if you allow people to change their email address. So usually you have something like, we've sent an email for verification to this and this email address. And at one point in time, I actually had a form that was absolutely awesome. Because they here said, usually you have, did not receive the email, resend it. And here they say, oh, you know what? I actually made a typo here. Let me change that email address here. And that was really, really awesome. So that is something, if you consider that, try it out. And no matter what you're doing with email addresses, usually you're sending out emails, like people enter stuff into a form field, and then they hit send, and then some awesome email is generated and is sent to the company, and 10 days later, someone sends you an email back like, oh yeah, we fixed whatever you asked for. And you're like, what? What did I ask for? So always, please send a copy to the user. I'm pretty sure all of you already had that issue, like, oh, I have no idea anymore what I did there. Also, some references, have a look at that. So we've covered gender, we've covered names, we've covered email addresses. Oh yeah, there was another thing, another interesting thing at that really bad form, which was a date. Yes, dates are a favorite of mine. I'm going to make it short here, don't worry. There is an RFC 3339. If date time components are ordered from least precise to most precise, useful property is achieved. Most of the globe actually uses that. There is this small village, small Gallian village in the west of France, where they are still not, no, that's west of the Atlantic, where they're still not doing that, where they still think it is a good idea to have them first the month and then the day and then the year. Please check dates, or if you request dates, make that in a proper order, and definitely make sure to tell me how you want me to insert that date. Like in this case, if you use an input type date, day, month, year, perfect. I know what to enter where. If I mess up and I enter month first and date after that, then it's my fault, but you told me what to do here. And it is not, you can't validate if the second, if 0203 is the 2nd of March or the 3rd of February. It just doesn't work because, yeah, it's like that. If you can't use the input type date, use a date shim, because that makes everything easier. If you use the input type date in a form, you get a nice selector, everything is clear. You don't need to, you can enter the date manually, but you don't need to do it. You can select it in the calendar, makes it much easier. And please always, not only in this case, always validate fault tolerant. So a date is not less valid because I say 1.1.2020, just because I forgot to add the zeros at the beginning. So like, yeah, but I want you to type 01.01. It doesn't make sense. But the most interesting question for me again is, why do you need a date for me? I mean, yeah, I can understand it. Please do not deliver this parcel before the 15th of February 2023, because I don't know, it's an awesome barbecue and I want to have a party with my friends, and until 2023 I won't be able to do that. But most of the time it's not like giving a delivery date or something like that. Most of the time it's because people want a birth date. What do they want a birth date for? For age verification? Well, most of the time it is for age verification. But why do I need to enter a birthday for an age verification? And if it is for an age verification, who makes sure that I'm actually giving you the right birth date? And let's think about that for a moment. Wouldn't it be easier to just add something like, yes, I'm legally entitled to buy beer, check mark, period? The great advantage is if you do something like this, the user says, yes, I'm legally entitled to do that. And you don't have to calculate based on where the user is located, whether that age is 16, 18, or 21, or whatever age it is in the United States. Yeah, different story. So that makes it much easier. And in the end, I mean, if we are sending if we are ordering stuff in a web shop, we are also using a checkbox to say, yes, I've read the terms and condition. And we all have read the terms and condition, haven't we? So don't ask for a birth date if you don't need one. If you want an age verification, either use this one or use a proper one. Like in Germany, we have Postident, something where you actually have someone validating your age. You have to go somewhere, you have to show your ID card, and they actually see, does that match up? Are the security things on the ID actually proper, or is it a fake or whatnot? So that's the only way to actually make sure, yes, people are of a certain age. So use that. There are some references. Check them out. And what bothers me most then is, I probably don't want to give you someone else my birth date, because what do they need that for? But then, of course, it's a required field. And here is the part where we come, or where GDPR and privacy by design kicks in. Because the GDPR request, and I know, I'm well aware that you are all in the UK, and GDPR is not of your business anymore, but still, the main idea is that you always ask yourself, do I need this information to provide the requested service? Do I need agenda to send a shipment to somewhere? Do I need a birthday to send a shipment to somewhere? And only those fields that you definitely need, those should be the required fields. Everything else, yeah, sure, you can ask for a birthday. If people are willing to give it to you, fine, you did a great job, because your website is so convincing that people actually give you their data. Awesome. But you do not need that. But also, please, please, please clearly mark your required fields. This is usually something that can be a bit tricky to actually figure out what is the required field. Apart from another thing that we come to later. References are, of course, GDPR and legal regulations. If you're legally required to have a birth date with an order for whatever you're doing, then of course you need to request it, and then of course it is required. But perhaps you can also give the user an information or a hint why it is required and why you need it. Yes. What was I thinking? Clearly label the stuff so that people know what they have to fill in, which brings me to the next part, the error messages. Because at one point in time, of course, you didn't fill all the fields, or something was just wrong. You forgot the ad in the email address or whatever. So yes, of course, you need error messages. A good error message always explains what went wrong and what you can do against it. Cool. So let's have a look at an awesome form that I used to actually send this talk to a conference, to a call for paper for a conference, which is this one. And yes, there is an error message. Can you read it? Well, I can't. Oh yeah, there is I entered all the stuff that I wanted, and fine. There is, as you perhaps see, there is no required field labeled, which is kind of no-go. And of course, I didn't enter all the fields. I hit submit my talk, and then I got this yellow on yellowish colored error message. Error, your short description is missing. Oh, okay. Let me check the form. Okay, what is that? Talk title, full description, abstract. Ah, here, short description. Okay, yeah, fine, cool. So I'll enter a short description. Awesome. So I entered a short description and hit send submit talk, and got no, that's not the same form. That's the form afterwards. So I got another error message. Which one is it now? Oh, yeah, please fill in tag fields. Okay, so where are we? Talk title, full description, short additional talk information, slides, talk type, talk. Tags. Here we go. Okay. By the way, just as a hint, this field additional talk information, that's where usually speakers enter the links to their joined in pages, where the people from the CFP actually can see the feedback that they got. So that's where it kicks in. So this form shows a few issues with error reporting. One of them is, please present all errors at once. Nothing is worse than sending a form multiple times only to get a new error each time. After the third error, people will leave. So in this case, that was like, yeah, okay, it's an open source system anyhow, so yeah, let's do that. If you're doing a web shop, after the third error, probably after the second already, people will leave and you lose revenue, and you do not want that. But apart from presenting all errors at once, also please present error messages where they can be fixed. It is nice to have them in the top bar, like, yeah, these are the errors, but then the user still has to check, okay, where do I have to fix that? So if you present that where it can be fixed immediately, it's like, okay, here's red, here's red, here's red, that's where I have to go. And also, please present end user compatible error messages. And I'm meaning like end user compatible. An error message like your input does not validate against the regular expression whatever is technically correct. And that might be what you are doing in the back end. But it's not what any end user actually can understand. And so they do not understand what they have to do to fix the issue. Like, there is an at missing in your email address. Ah, yeah, okay, I understand that. Perfect. So also please present actionable error messages. Like, of course, one way would be like, there is an at missing in your error message, in your email address. Or you could say, add an at to your email address, or enter an email address with an at. One is like, this is the issue, and the other one is, do this and I'm happy. Well, perhaps I'm happy, because then you forget the top level domain and the whole stuff starts again, but that's a different story. Yes, for me, actually revealing thing was when I did the research for that talk, that I stumbled over a blog post from Steve Workman, and he wrote about exactly these issues in 2008. And that read like, yeah, that's not new, that's already common knowledge. So they are like, okay, perhaps since 2000. And I'm pretty sure since the web exists, those things are done wrong and could be improved. So please have a look at your own error messages in your own website and see whether you can improve them. That would be really lovely. Okay, so we have covered a lot of stuff already. So if we want to register somewhere, we need an email address, we need a name, we don't need a gender, we don't need a birth date, perhaps an address if we want something shipped. Oh yeah, usually we want to log in again afterwards. So what do we need as well? We need passwords. Yeah, well, what can I say about passwords? Best thing about password is if you avoid them. Whatever you have in passwords, or whatever you do not have in passwords in your database, cannot be leaked. So if you use external sources for passwords, you're better off, because no one can breach, well, people can breach your system, but they cannot gather any passwords from your system. So there are some external sources like OAuth or SAML or LDAP or Kerberos. If you use different providers, please, if you use external sources, please use different providers, because not everyone is on Twitter or wants to use Facebook. It's always like, log in via Facebook or Google. No, I don't want either. Can I just use an email and a password, or can I just use OAuth or whatever? Perhaps GitHub, or yeah. Just remember that. If you have a special site that, of course, does interactions only with Facebook, of course, it makes sense to only use Facebook, but that's a different story. Depends on the use case. And if you have to store passwords yourself, please, please, please don't roll your own crypto. There are people that are far more knowledgeable than most of you, at least more knowledgeable than I am. I wouldn't ever roll my own crypto because that's already taken care for. And we are all using PHP, which is awesome. And in PHP, we already have that done, because of course, we are always hashing our passwords. We are not storing them in Cleartext. And if we hash the passwords, there is the password hashing API in PHP, which is easy to use. If you don't know how to use it, have a look at the documentation. Feel free to ping me afterwards, because that's really, really, really easy to use. You feed the password, it gets hashed. You just store this hash in the database. And the next time the user logs in, you verify, you hash the password again, verify it against the hash. No, you call the password hashing API actually with the hash from the database and the Cleartext password. Do they match? Yes, they do. Perfect. If they don't do, well, we have a problem. And there is even a function to check whether it needs to be rehashed, because in between you could modify the hashing algorithm, and then it would transparently be rehashed and stored in the stronger or better encrypted format. Really awesome thing. Check it out if you have to store passwords. Password hashing API, exactly. And also avoid leaking Cleartext passwords. that is something that is not as easy, perhaps. I've built a value object for passwords that tries to get around that. So if you enter the password there, it gets not hashed, but actually encrypted in a format that only works for this one request. So next request, some other encryption will be used. And during the whole lifetime, you can get to the Cleartext password, but should you actually accidentally do a var dump or something like that, it will only output some stars and not the Cleartext password in the log files. And please also don't ever send passwords in GET requests, because they will be logged in the web server log files with the GET parameters, and then you have the passwords in Cleartext in the web server log. Well done. Yeah, avoid leaking Cleartext passwords. If you have to ask for passwords, please don't force passwords requirements apart from a minimum length, because that's bullshit. I will show you in a second. Perhaps you can show information about the password quality, like, yeah, this is red, this is yellowish, this is green. And encourage users to use passphrases, like not only password, but like stuff like whatever. My favorite book is about Zen Framework 2. That's just because I've seen that over there. Might not be my, well, whatever. Java is just an island or something like that. So that it's just longer, and due to it being longer, it is much stronger than a short password where you replace some characters with numbers and others with special signs and whatnot. And also, by now, allow users to use password managers, because why should I remember all the passwords I've used? And of course, we are all using different passwords for different sites, aren't we? And not I love Paul for all my sites, hopefully. And also never ever limit the password length. Like, enter a password between 8 and 16 characters. Oh, you're using a varchar 16 to store the password in. Thank you very much. And in Cleartext, of course, because what the hell? The password is hashed anyhow. So the hashed password length is, even if you're using MD5, it's 32 characters, no matter how long the password was at the beginning. So even with an 8-character password, you get a 32-character hash from that. Well, MD5 hash. If you're using something decent, the hash will be much longer. And so the only reason to actually require a max length is because it's stored in plain text somewhere. What the hell? Yes, of course, you should limit the password length, because hashing kind of 64K password takes a decent amount of CPU time, so it might not be what you want, but I'm really sorry. 64K should be enough, and that should be okay. And also, and you might wonder why I'm saying that, but I have actually a good source for that. Ditch the required password resets every 2 weeks, 2 months, or whatever. I'm not sure whether it is the organization that advises the British MI6 or the United States Homeland Security. One of them actually had a blog post. I have a link to that later on, about this, and they definitely say if you require people to reset their password every 2 months, that will reduce the password security at all, because that means that the password will end up on a post-it on the monitor, which is not what we want. Here is a short explanation of why pass phrases are much more secure than a short password with replacements and stuff like that. The Troubadour M3 has about 28 bits of entropy, which can be guessed within 3 days. At the time of drawing that XKCD, that might be less by now. But the correct host battery staple has 44 bits of entropy and takes 550 years to guess. So that's pretty decent. So remember that, and use, perhaps check your own password and have a look at that and think about it. Here are some resources about that. And as I said, allow people to use a password manager. That brings me also to something else that is not strictly related to that, but copy and paste is part of user interface usually. And especially in password fields, I've seen it that people disabled copy and paste. So people are not able to use a password manager to copy and paste their password into the password field, which kind of sucks, because that means, yeah, I have to use another password that I can definitely remember. And guess what? That will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or password exclamation mark or something like that. So especially in password fields, don't limit people, or don't inhibit copy and paste. And also here, there is a resource. The National Cybersecurity Center has a blog post on that. Please do it. Now, passwords are hard to remember, at least if you didn't follow those rules. So most of the time you have something, or in some websites, you have something that is called security questions. Yeah, try to avoid them. Because the main interest, the interesting question is, do you actually really need them? Because if the password is easy to remember, people will not need the security questions. So most of the time you don't need them. If you actually need them, if you decide, yes, I need them, then don't use predefined questions. I'll show you in a second why. Make up your own set of questions, because very often you stumble over things like this on Twitter or Facebook. And guess what is one of the common security questions? What was your first car? Oh, thank you very much, folks. Or what about this one? What was your first pet and what was its name? And one of those usually used security questions is, what was your first pet? Thank you for answering all those security questions for me. Yeah, because security questions in the end are just a backup password. That's easier to remember than a password. If you make the password easy to remember, you don't need a backup password. And if you allow people to use a password manager, they won't be able to forget the password because it's stored in the password manager. And we're not talking about perhaps forgetting the password for the password manager. That is not our topic here. Also, here's some resources, scripts on security, awesome blog post. Give it a read. And then I think the final thing, or one of the final things, is you remember that one of those first slides, one of those examples, the GitLab one with the "I am not a robot" captcha? Yeah, captchas. There is nothing more to say to that. When I fill out a captcha, I always wonder, do robots not know what a stop sign is? What about self-driving cars? If my Tesla was trying to sign up for a newsletter, would it pass the test? I would hope so, but that would make the car human? So every time I'm actually requested by Google to select all the traffic lights, I'm always like, does selecting traffic lights make me human? So Tesla is human, or what is this going on? Yeah, captchas usually are ugly. They're hard to read. Come to that in a second. They discriminate users with disabilities. And they also use the user as workforce for training for algorithms. How to read? Definitely. Discriminate users with disabilities? Yeah, kind of. At least the usual captchas. But if usually in the good ones, you have also something like, send me a sound file or something else like that, where you can, as a disabled person, can download a sound file or listen to a sound file and then enter whatever was said there. We come to that in a second. And use the user as a workforce. ReCAPTCHA originally started to help digitizing books. So they were digitizing books with OCR, and every now and then they stumbled over something that they couldn't digitize. And reCAPTCHA was using those things and asking people to actually enter what was not digitizable at that point in time. And that was really cool. In 2009, that project was acquired by Google, and Google then made what we now know as reCAPTCHA. But if we don't, or if you shouldn't use CAPTCHAs, what are the alternatives? Because yes, there will be spam, and we want to get rid of spam. So what are the possibilities? One possibility would be a honeypot, which is kind of a field that is requested to be left as it is. But if you label that accordingly, a bot will definitely fill it out. So every time you get a form that with a filled out field, you know, thanks, that comes from a bot. Digit. I'm using that on the PHP.ug website, and I didn't get any spam from that so far. That's pretty cool. Or something like a math captcha, like what is 2 + 5? Most of the people will be able to answer that. No real magic happening there. And if you edit that every now and then, just make sure that every time someone enters 7, it's correct. That's fine. Or use CSRF tokens. So someone has to actually have downloaded the site to be then able to submit it, which for most of the bots just doesn't work. Or in case of passwords and stuff like that, use two-factor verification so that you actually know, yes, this the person knows something, and the person also has something that makes logging in much easier. And to the resources, UnCAPTCHA. I just told you that there is a possibility to download a sound file or something like that. And at the University of Maryland, they made fun of that because they actually built this UnCAPTCHA, which does exactly that. As soon as it encounters a reCAPTCHA, it downloads, well, remember, reCAPTCHA Google. It downloads the sound file, sends the sound file to the Google voice transition algorithm, gets back the actual value or the kind of string of what is said there, and enter that string into the CAPTCHA. So they are beating Google's reCAPTCHA with Google's SoundCloud, which is awesome. So if you want to have more information about that, check that out. Awesome stuff. Then there are some additional questions. Awesome falsehoods programmers believe. Give it a read. It's hilarious. That was just a short recap of what is usually annoying or what I have a look at in registration forms. And I think by now there is not a single registration form where I have something like, oh, is that really necessary? That could be done better. And I've just done today, I've dug through a form from an insurance company, health insurance company, and I was like, what the? I was going mad. It was really not nice. So that's it from my side. Are there any questions?
If there are any questions, then you can pop them in the Q&A or onto the Zoom webinar chat. Apparently Welsh Water, I don't know what you think about this, Welsh Water have been asked to register your online bills, and you have to give them the customer reference number, email address, telephone number, and date of birth.
Sorry, that was too fast. Can you repeat that?
It was somebody in chat is saying that they got an email from Welsh Water yesterday asking to register the bills, and you have to supply your customer reference number, I suppose it's fair enough, email address, telephone number, and date of birth.
Wait a second.
Water bills.
wait a second. You got an email from them and they were asking for your email address?
Well,
was that a physical letter?
It says it was an email from them.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, you definitely need a birthday to pay your water bills.
I love the fact that they've built something that sends the Google CAPTCHA audio to Google.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really amazing.
Pretty cool.
I've never ever used that so far, but if I would build something that should get around captchas, that would definitely be something. That would be really cool. Any other comments, remarks, requests?
A question from me. I don't think you touched on it, but one that annoys me is phone numbers. And sometimes it's country, and sometimes then it's, do I drop off the leading zero? What's your opinions there?
Yeah, phone numbers are hard. Well, actually, they're not hard, because usually they are pretty sane from a technical point of view. You have the country part, you have the local part, and you have the extension number, and then perhaps you have more or less the extension number. So that should be rather easy. We can discuss about the formatting of the phone number then, where to use 2 digits and a space, or 3 digits and a space. That's a different story. But if you if you have a 0 at the beginning, skip that or ditch that and use a plus whatever the country is. So that should work out. But yes, that is something that is pretty annoying. How do you want my phone number now? And especially if you then enter, like for me, +4960 whatever, it's always like, no, your phone number is wrong. It contains the wrong signs. No, there is no wrong sign in that. A plus is definitely valid for a phone number, as is a star and a hashtag, whatever. But yeah, validation is hard.
Mm-hmm.
More interesting, and I didn't cover that here because that's a talk in itself, more or less. I was building a form or a system for parcel tracking. And how do you format an address? What is an address? I mean, the best thing is for us in Germany, for example, it's easy. Yeah, postal code. Yeah, sure. That's only numbers. And that's the case for a shitload of countries. And then the British come around, and suddenly everything blows up. Because, well, in the end, it's similar to names. Use a field for the address line, perhaps a field for the second address line and third address line. Use a field that doesn't validate at all for the postal code. Use a field for the city or the place of living, because city is always like, I'm living in a village with 500 people. I'm always a bit pissed if someone requests my city I live in, or town, and perhaps a state, if a state is necessary, which it is for the United States, but not for everyone. The state is necessary. So make that depending on whether you need it or not. And of course, a country. But that's about it. And there is not really much validation going on, because if you're sending parcels, you will send the data to a shipment provider anyhow, and they have a decent way of validating the data. And they will definitely tell you, you know what, that is nice that you thought you could send a parcel to there, but that address does not exist. And that's something that we are not able to build in a default system. So address validation is something that is a complete topic in its own. Does that somehow answer your question regarding the phone numbers?
Yep.
Cool.
It's a sore point for me as well.
Any other parts? Any other things?
I think that's all the questions we have at the moment.
Let me just wrap that up.
Okay.
Thank you very much for being here. Please leave feedback. I would really appreciate that. And if there are any more questions, feel free to grab me now. Afterwards, I've prepared myself some beer, so I will be hanging around for sometime. And if you want to chat about that, or feel free to ping me afterwards via email, via Twitter, via whatever you want. And that's it from me. Thank you very much.